Shabbat Shalom. Welcome everybody online that's joining us. Welcome everyone that's here. So Ralphie is not with us today. He's up at the property, him and Perry. So he asked me to step in and do the in-depth study. And today I chose to talk about something that's happening or will be happening in the heavens. So obviously this is titled Heavens Declare. As I'd mentioned, we're going to hold the mic until after because I've got just a short amount of time to cover the things that Abba has shown me. So we're going to dig in. I want to first say that we're going to talk about biblical astronomy and not astrology. So that's our topics today, is the things that God created. Genesis 1:14, he created the sun, the moon, and the stars so that we would know the days, the months, the years, and the seasons, the moeds, the epochs, the times that he has set forth. Last week in the message, I had put this out, Isaiah 34:6 and Isaiah 63:1, both of them talking about the king coming from Bozrah, a sacrifice in Bozrah and a great slaughter, and also he's coming from Bozrah with glowing colors and his garment in red. So looking at this, I realized that in what archaeologists and scholars say that ancient Bozrah, where Edom dwelt, which is in the land of Jordan, there's nothing there right now. And I mean, there's nothing to destroy or wipe out. It's just rock, okay? So in order for this to happen at that location in the next 2 decades, there would have to be one of the most mega influx of people moving to this area that the world has ever seen. So, but I realized that this Bozrah location must be something else. So I said, okay, let's find out what the word means. When I saw the word meant sheepfold, enclosure for sheep, I thought, oh my goodness, because I know that there's a constellation up there that talks about this. So, and we're going to talk about this rock or comet, whatever everyone believes that it is, or even if it's coming. But because it's been publicized that it's coming by NASA and astronomers, it is called Apophis. And in June 2004, astronomers at the Kitt Peak National Observatory detected a sizable asteroid heading in the direction of Earth. Subsequent efforts made later in 2004 by a team of the Sliding Spring Survey in Australia identified the asteroid again. The next year, the team that discovered the asteroid named it Apophis, after the ancient Egyptian spirit of evil, darkness, and destruction, a malevolent force that cannot be stopped according to legend. Immediately, the possibility of a collision of the celestial body with our planet became a focus of calculation and preparation on behalf of preventative efforts by experts across the world. This is an excerpt out of Thomas Horn's book, The Wormwood Prophecy. If you haven't got it, don't know about it, I would encourage you to get it and read it, because he had a dream about this rock coming, and it's very interesting. So the enormous asteroid Apophis will reportedly pass disturbingly close to Earth. They said that it would hit the Earth in April 13th of 2029. Then they said, well, it's not really going to hit. It's just going to come really close between us and the moon. Really, really close. Okay. So with that being said, we want to look at some interesting things. We're going to start out giving you some understanding about these constellations that we're going to be looking at today. So the first one is called Cancer the Crab. The picture is on the right. In biblical astronomy, it's called Messiah's redeemed possessions held fast, where his possession, his sheep, are held fast, protected, okay? The Dendera name is the cattle folds. I won't ever say the actual ancient name because I'll probably mess it up. I'm going to just read the definition. But in all 5, when we go through these, each of these constellation has 40 to 80 stars in them. Each star has a name. In all the 5 ancient names, Hebrew, Sumerian, Babylonian, Egyptian, and forget the other one. Anyway, Arabic, they all have retained the meaning, even though their own names are different. The meaning has been the same, hasn't lost, because remember, he named the stars. So they are still holding their name. So watch what you get picture out of this when you see the names of the stars in this constellation called the Crab. So you have the first one is called the cattle folds. The same name, we have the key to the meaning of the sign. The Arabic name, which means who holds or binds, and may be from the Hebrew to bind together. The Syriac means the same. The Greek name, which means holding or encircling, as does the Latin, and hence is applied to the crab. In the word Khan, we have the traveler's rest or inn, while this other word is the Arabic for encircling. The ancient Akkadian name of the month is this word, which means the Caesar or the possessor of the seed. In the center of the sign, there is a remarkably bright cluster of stars, so bright that they can be sometimes seen with the naked eye. It looks like a comet and is made up of a great multitude. Remember the promise that he made to Abraham, your seed would be a great multitude. Modern astronomers have called it the beehive, but its ancient name has come down to us as this word, which means a multitude or offspring. The brightest star in the head is called the holding, and the other star, A, in the lower large claw is called this word, which in Hebrew and Arabic means the sheltering or the hiding place. Reminds me of the lady that wrote the book. Another is named, this word in Arabic means assembled, thousands, or the kids or the lambs. The three constellations develop the truth. What is now called Ursa Minor is the lesser flock. Ursa Major gives us the sheepfold and the sheep, while Argo, the ship, shows the travelers and the pilgrims brought safely home, all conflict over. Now, I need to point out to you that these were written, smaller flock, larger flock, before Jacob and Abraham ever came along. So he knew what was coming, and he put the story in the heavens that we would see and that all have been looking at for millennia, that we'd see what was coming. Ursa Minor is a constellation that is called, it's related to the crab. So all these, Ursa Minor, Ursa Major, and Argo are related to the crab, and they call them, I believe the name is Deacon constellation, but they are associated with each other. And it's called the little, or the lesser sheepfold. And the primitive truth that there were two or a pair of constellation is preserved, and that of these two, one is larger, the other smaller. But what were they? We have the clue to the answer in the name of the brightest star of the larger constellation, which is called this word, and it means a herd of animals. Could be cattle. I would like to say sheep, okay? In Arabic, the word means cattle, and in Hebrew, it is a fold. Remember, Yeshua used this word a lot. I must bring them into this fold, okay? And hence, in this Chaldee, it is meant wealth. The Hebrew dove means rest or security, and certainly there is not much of either to be found or enjoyed with bears. The word occurs in Deuteronomy 33:25. As thy days, so shall thy strength be. The Revised Version gives in the margin, so shall thy rest or security be. This accords with what we have already seen under this constellation Cancer. Couching down between the sheepfolds, he saw a resting place that it was good. And of course, the lion is the one that's crouching down between the sheepfolds. The pole star, which is in this constellation, North Pole, is in the tail of this constellation. And remember, the ancients called the North Star truth because it never changed. It was in the same place always. They could trust it. They could count on it to guide them the way that they went. And so it's interesting that the lesser sheepfold, I would propose to you, is Benjamin and Judah. The larger sheepfold is the other 10 tribes, is what I'm going to propose to you, okay? And so, yes, my opinion. This pole star was called by the Greeks this word, which is cynosure, and it seems to apply this term to the whole of the 7 stars of this lesser constellation, the Lesser Sheepfold. Now, I've got to go back and do some research to find out how these 7 stars are there, because I only knew of a 7 cluster of stars called Pleiades, and now that I know there's another one, it's going to change everything, and I'll go back and re-look at things that have. There's a lot of granite carvings that date 3, 4, 5,000 years old that have 7 stars in the carving. I always thought it was referring to Pleiades, but now I'm realizing it could be referring to this constellation. I'll have to go back and revisit that. Okay, so Mr. Robert Brown shows that this word, once supposed to be Hellenic, is non-Hellenic and possibly Euphratean in origin, from a word which he transliterates this word and renders it as it literally means high in rising or high in heavenly position. Is not this the primitive truth of the revelation? Will not the lesser fold be high, yea, highest in heavenly position? Why? Because the Messiah came from this place. He came from Judah, from this fold, high in place and position. Okay. So now we're going to move to, we're going to still talk about this constellation. So the pole star has been removed from the dragon and now is in this lesser fold. And when the dragon shall be cast down from the heavens, the heavenly seed will be safely folded there. But this is the lesser sheepfold. These are they who all through the ages have been partakers of the heavenly calling, who desired a better country, that is, a heavenly. And I would propose to you that this also represents Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is the center of all the earth, just like the pole star is the center. Everything revolves around it. This is likened unto Jerusalem. Okay? And so it says, God hath prepared for them a city, the city which Abraham himself looked for. This was no earthly city, but a city whose builder and maker is Elohim. These have always been a smaller company, a little flock, but the kingdom shall be theirs, even the kingdom of Elohim, for which they now look and wait. They have not yet received the promises, but having seen them from far off, by faith they were persuaded of them and embraced them and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. Their Messiah has accomplished the redemption of the purchased possession, and in due time the redeemed will inherit it unto the praise of his glory. The bright star, B, is named this word, which means waiting him who cometh. Other stars not identified are named these other Arabic names, which mean the calves or the young. Also, the redeemed assembly. All of these can't help but give you the picture of what the scriptures testify as and what we know as what's coming. This other star, Al-Gedi, means the kid. Another is Al-Qaid, the assembly, while Arcus or Arctos, from which we derive the term Arctic regions, means, according to one interpreter, a traveling company, or according to another, the stronghold of the saved. But there is not only the heavenly seed, which is compared to the stars of heaven, but there is the seed that is compared to the sand of the sea, the larger flock or company who will enjoy the earthly blessing, which is the big constellation, which everyone has called the bear, which we're going to look at next. Ursa Major, the great bear, is really in biblical astronomy called the fold and the flock. Okay? I didn't have enough room to do so I had to put this separately. And so this is what it says about this constellation. In the book of Job, it is mentioned under the name Ash. Canst thou guide Ash and her offspring? Which is rendered in the AV, Arcturus and his sons, and in the RV, the bear with her train, or sons. The Arabs still call it Al-Naish, or Anaish, the assembled together as sheep in a fold. Again, Yeshua said, I have sheep that I must bring into this fold. The ancient Jewish commentators interpreted Ash as the 7 stars of this constellation. They are called by others this word, which thus becomes the Latin word for north. Which way did he scatter them? They were scattered to the north. And where are they coming from? He says, I'm going to gather them from the north. It's very interesting how it's laid out like that in the text. The brightest star in the back is named this word, which, as we have seen, means a herd of animals or a flock, and gives its name to the whole constellation. The star B is named Merak, Hebrew. The flock, Arabic, is purchased. The star Y on the left is called this word meaning visited. Remember, Yeshua says he had visited us. He came in his visitation. Or guarded or numbered as a flock. For his sheep, like the stars, are both numbered and named. The star E is called this word, a name we have had meaning the she-goat. The star in the middle of the tail is called separate or small, and close to it is another one called the lamb. The star Y at the end of the so-called tail is named Benet Naish, the daughters of the assembly. It is also called this word, meaning the assembled, and the star in the right foot is called Talitha. Interesting. The names of other stars not identified all give the same testimony. The sheepfold, the multitude, many assembled, the separated, as the flock in the fold. Protected, covered, redeemed, ransomed, the latter herd or flock. Notice latter herd. All of these these are the names that have been held for millennia that haven't changed. The company of travelers, the coming and going, the sheepfold set or appointed. There is not one discordant voice in the rich abundance of this testimony that we have nothing to do here with the Grecian myths about bears or wild boars. We see only the innumerable seed gathered by him who scattered. And again, this comes to us from E.W. Bullinger's book, The Witness of the Stars. I encourage you to get that and read it as well. Many are the scriptures we might quote which speak of this gathering and assembling of the long scattered flock. Notice the long scattered flock. This is the one that's been scattered the longest, still awaiting to be gathered. It is written as plainly in the book as it is in the heavens. The prophecies of this gathering are as conspicuous as the word of God, as the 7 stars are in the sky. It is difficult even to make a selection from the wealth of such promises, but few are more beautiful than that of Ezekiel 34:12-16. As a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered, so I will seek out my sheep. As Yeshua said, I came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and will deliver them out of all the places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. I will bring them out from the people, gather them from the countries. I will bring them to their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel, by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There they shall lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and I will cause them to lie down, says Yahweh Elohim. I will seek that which was lost, and I will bring again that which was driven away. That's the driven away divorce language. And will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat among the strong, and the strong I will feed them with righteous judgment. And so now we transition into the ship, the constellation called Argo, the ship. In biblical astronomy, it's called the Pilgrims, now safe at home. This is the return of the great immigrant ship Argo and all its company of travelers. For this is the meaning of the word Argo. I find it interesting that this, if you've ever saw the movie or the book Jason and the Argonauts, it was derived from these constellations. So you might revisit that again, because evidently it was written and the theme of it is about what we're talking about today. In Kircher's Egyptian planisphere, Argo is represented. Now listen, you got to get this. In this planisphere in Egypt, this ship is represented by 2 galleys, as we have 2 sheepfolds, whose prows are surmounted by ram's heads, and the stern of one of them ends in a fish's tail. One of the two occupies 4 segments of the sphere, from Taurus to Virgo, while the other occupies 4 from Leo to Capricorn. Remember, Capricorn is the slain goat for the redeemed. One half of the southern meridians is occupied with these galleys and their construction and decorations. Astronomers tell us that they carry us back. The one to the period when the bull opened the year, to which the time Virgil refers, and the other to the same epoch when the summer solstice was in Leo. An era greatly antecedent to the Argonautic expedition. How else, they ask, do we account for the one ship having her prow in the first decan of Taurus? Remember, the bull Taurus is likened unto Ephraim, which was the blessing pronounced upon Ephraim, and her poop in the last decan of Leo, of the lion of the tribe of Judah. So here we have Judah, one stick, and Ephraim, the other stick, already shown here in this constellation. Or for one galley being freighted with the installed bull, Ephraim, and the other with the celestial lion, Judah. Very interesting. It will indeed be a large vessel, the true Argo with its company of travelers, a great multitude which no man can number. All this is indicated by the immense size of the constellation, as well as by the large number of its stars. Its brightest star near the keel is called this word, which means the possession of him who cometh. Other star names, not identified, are these words meaning the multitude or abundance, the possession, the released who travel. Who would be the released? Who has been released from sin and death? Hallelujah, isn't that great? I mean, it's right in the word here before any of that even happened. The desired and the branch. Is not all this exactly in harmony with the rest of this sign? And is this not what is written in the book? Jeremiah 30, 10 and 11. Therefore, fear not, thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith Yahweh. Neither be dismayed, O Israel. Here's the two that are in the ship. For lo, I will save thee from afar. We talked about this a week or two ago. And thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Jacob shall return and be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, says Yahweh, to save thee. Lift up thine eyes round about and see. All they gather themselves together, they come to thee. Thy sons shall come from afar. Thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. Then you shall see and flow together, and thy heart shall fear and be enlarged. Because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. Who are these that fly as a cloud, and as doves to their windows? Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from afar. Wow. Isaiah 9, 4, 5, 8, and 9. The whole chapter of Isaiah 9 should be read as if we wish to understand the great teaching of this sign, which tells of Messiah's secured possession, the safe folding of his blood-bought flock, the blessed return of his pilgrims, and their abundance entrance into everlasting rest. There is a blessing, or there is a blessed home beyond this land of woe, where trials never come, nor tears of sorrow flow, where faith is lost in sight, and patient love is crowned, and everlasting light its glory throws around. O joy, all joys beyond, to see the Lamb who died, and count each sacred wound in hands and feet and side, to give to him the praise of every triumph won, and sing through endless days the great things he hath done. Look up, ye saints of Elohim, nor fear to tread below the path your Savior trod of daily toil and woe. Wait but a little while in uncomplaining love. His own most gracious smile shall welcome you above. Wow, what an awesome, awesome testimony. So, in order for you to see what's coming, you also need to know what the constellation, the Leo, the lion, is about, and a couple of other constellations before we get into looking at what was shown to me. So the Leo, the lion, is called in biblical astronomy the lion of the tribe of Judah, who is aroused for the rending of the prey. Now, Leo is here right next to the sheep pen of the crab. And right below Leo is the serpent, Hydra. He's ready to pounce on Hydra to do the rending of the prey, which is Hydra, the serpent of old. And so here's what it says about Leo. Its Egyptian name is this, which means the pouring out. So in other words, we see something about the lion, it's recounting this pouring out. This is no pouring out of inundation of the Nile, but it is the pouring out of the cup of divine wrath on that old serpent. This is the one great truth of the closing chapter of this book. It is his feet are over his head of Hydra, the great serpent, and just about to descend upon it and crush it. The three constellations of the sign complete the final picture. We have the three that join Leo are called Hydra, the old serpent destroyed, Crater, which looks like a chalice or a cup, and it means the cup of divine wrath poured out on the serpent. And then Corvus, the bird, is the bird of prey that's now devouring. What did it say in the scripture about, come all ye birds for the great what? The great harvest, you're going to come and devour. Isn't that awesome? And here we have a constellation talking about that. The Dendera picture exhibits all four in one. The lion is presented treading down the serpent. The bird of prey is also perched upon it, while below is a plumed female figure holding two cups, answering to Crater, the cup of wrath. Very interesting. And so now that you understand Leo a little bit and what accompanies Leo, you need to know what the breaker is, Perseus. So Perseus is called the breaker, and in biblical astronomy, it's the breaker delivering his redeemed. And it's a man with a weapon drawn in one hand and a slain enemy in the other. Here we have set before us a mighty man, called in the Hebrew Peretz, from which we have the Greek from Persis or Perseus. It is the same word which is used of Messiah in Micah 2:13, when he shall surely gather the remnant of Israel. This is what is pictured to us here. We see a glorious breaker taking his place before his redeemed, breaking forth at their head, breaking down all barriers, and breaking the heads of Leviathan and all his hosts. In his right hand he has his sore and great and strong sword lifted up to smite and break down the enemy. He has wings on his feet, which tell us he is coming swiftly. In his left hand he carries the head of the enemy whom he hath slain. So now let's look at Micah. I will surely assemble all of you. Now this breaker is talking about the assemble, the two constellations with the crab. I will assemble all of you, Jacob. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together where? In the sheep of the fold. Oh my goodness, it's almost like this is amazing. Like a flock in the midst of his pasture, they will be noisy with men. The breaker, Perseus, goes before them. They break out, pass through the gate, and go out by it. So their king goes on before them, and Yahweh is at their head. Now we're going to start this now. I've laid some groundwork for you so that you can see what you've seen this before. So there is one thing you've seen before, and that's this picture here. So back last year, I saw this granite carving, and the green arrow is pointing to a moon. The blue arrow is pointing to a comet. The yellow arrow is pointing to the sun, and the red arrow is pointing to, on the granite, it's pointing to Capricorn, which is a half goat, half fish. Well, I thought, well, this is a constellation, and it's talking about something that's happened. So I went back. I think I went all the way back to Christ's birth, and then went forward and found this same picture in the heavens on February 7th of 2027. The same thing that's on this granite stele is actually going to be in the heavens above us in February of 2027. So this is where to me, it kind of begins. And I want to share a couple other things with you. And the goat, or the Capricorn, is called in biblical astronomy the goat of atonement slain for the redeemed. All talking about what's coming with the sheepfold and all this is happening, it all paints to the same picture. In 2027, in August, so this is in February, this comet is called Soho. I made I suggested last year that this comet Soho and the comet Maholtz were harbinger comets, that they were showing us something that was going to happen in the near future. And I showed that through Messiah's, before his birth, the comet Maholtz and Soho came just before a year and a half. That also came before the flood. It came before the destruction from Babylon. There's many times that these two comets came just a year before. I've got 5 different instances where it's shown. So I've now kind of thought in my head, this very possibly could be a harbinger comet. So this happens in February 2027. March, April, May, June, July. 6 months later, in August 2nd of 2027, Israel sees the first solar eclipse that they've seen in decades. And look where they're seeing it, in the sheepfold. Abba could have chose to have this eclipse that they see in any place. But this eclipse is happening in the crab of the pin with the 2 constellations of the greater fold and the lesser fold. Now remember, in biblical astronomy, the solar eclipse is relating to the nations. The lunar is relating to Israel. So if Israel is seeing this in the crab, it's got to be talking about somewhere outside of Israel, which would be about us. Because the fold and the pin is related to us too. Amos 8:9 says this, "It will come about in that day, declares Yahweh Adonai, that I will make the sun go down at noon and make the earth dark in broad daylight." This happens at noontime Israel. At noon Israel, this eclipse happens and gets dark. Is that coincidence, or is this amazing? I want to point out to you that in 2001, there was a financial crisis when the Trade Center was hit in September. In 2008, in September, we had another financial crisis. The stock market fell, and it happened in the month of September. For us, our brother Judah calls Yom Teruah the Day of Judgment. Both of these events happened on Day of Judgment for us, on Yom Teruah. And then in 2015, 7 years later, all these are 7 years apart. 01 to 08, 7 years, 08 to 15 is 7 years. Do yourself a favor and Google the last financial crisis, and it'll tell you it was 2014 and 2015. It's stunning. Guess when the next 7 year comes to an end? This September. In this September, on September the 26th, which will be Yom Teruah for us, we need to be watching, because another 7 happens at this point in time. You can see in the globe the dark circle of all that will be darkened. The small darks, well, let's see, I've got tools. This right here is where it's the total eclipse over one of the most amazing temples in Egypt. It's going to be completely dark. This greater circle that goes out all the way out here is all that will be darkened, which obviously includes Jerusalem here, will be darkened during this noontime eclipse in August. So it's very amazing because of the location that it's happening. It's happening in the sheepfold. And Venus is here, as you can see, with Mercury in the same spot of this constellation. Okay. Isaiah 13:25 says this, "They are coming from a far country." The English says from the farthest horizons, but the Greek says from the farthest heavens. Yahweh has instruments of indignation to destroy the whole land. In other words, the Greek says he's bringing something from the farthest heavens to bring destruction to the land. Has he done that before? Yes, he has. Acts 1:7 says, he said to them, "It is not for you to know the times and epochs which the Father has fixed by his own authority." So now let's look at something. Can everybody see the picture? So this is February the 7th, 2027. As I had mentioned to you, this is the moon, the comet Soho, and the sun and the goat happening. Apophis is the rock that we're focusing on, and so you're going to see it during the whole, as we move through this whole constellation, as we move through time. So Apophis is here in the bands of the fish, and you can see that Saturn is also here at this location. So we're going to move forward, and I'm going to show you what's happening. So let's move forward, and we're at February 27th. Now we're going to move forward. You can see that the comet moves on through and passes through the goat. Apophis is now entering the bands. It's now entering over into the ram, going into the bull, into the bull's head. It comes over here to the tip of the spear, or the tip of the weapon of Orion, or light Orion, another mighty warrior. Goes into Gemini and moves into the sheepfold on June the 2nd, 2027. Okay? So it moves, just take note of that. Moves into the sheepfold on June 27th. It comes across Jupiter here on June 23rd, and watch what happens. It crosses right here at Regulus. Let me put it on Regulus. This is Regulus, the king star. And so Apophis and Jupiter are about to cross over. When Jupiter does a triple conjunction over this star, that's called the Star of Bethlehem. The amazing thing that happened at Yeshua's birth, just before his birth. Okay? So this is a real important place in the heavens. Okay? And remember what the Leo is about. He's about to prance upon who? Here's the serpent. Here's the serpent of old down here below him. Here's the cup, and here's the bird. All this is here. So let's watch and see where Apophis goes as it moves forward. So look at the sun up here in the constellation of the crab, and you'll see the day of, right here is when the eclipse happens. So there's the moon and the eclipse here on August 1st and 2nd, and Apophis is here between the head of Virgo and between the lion. The interesting thing about that is, if you notice the Great Pyramid, there's two objects there. One's the Sphinx, which is a lion and a woman's head, and we have that same picture depicted here. Very interesting. Okay, so we're going to move forward through August of 27. This date right here, Apophis and Mars, the war planet, come into the scales on September the 24th. Write that date down and notice when we're at on feast dates on September 24th, 2027. The Mercury is in the barley, and Venus is in the Virgin. Okay. So it moves on to the where the wrestling with the enemy is taking place. That probably is another important date. October 14th is when it's in the wrestling of the enemy. It's now moving on into the goat slain for the redeemed. We're coming up on something very interesting, so bear with me. January. Okay. So I want you to stay focused on, you see where the Apophis just went? It's in the head of the dragon. Keep your eyes on the neck of the dragon. Something interesting is going to happen here in a minute. Apophis is in the head of the dragon, January of 30. We're going to move on. It moves on up into the bull. Then it moves on up into the head of the bull in March, moves back into the tip of the spear. April the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 12th. Now look at the neck of the dragon. Paying attention? Oh, do you see something in the neck of the dragon? Right here. This is called Maholtz. You see the word Maholtz? You can't see the dragon? Or let's do this. Let's make this real evident to you. Can you see it now? We can even get bigger if you really want to see it. Everyone can see it? I'll put the marker on it. This is Maholtz. The word is Maholtz. This is the comet that I tell you could possibly be a harbinger comet. So it moves into this place on April the 29th of 2028, but we want to watch and see where it goes. So on April 29th, we don't need to worry about Apophis right now. Our focus is on the harbinger comet. So it moves through the neck, right through the head of the dragon, cutting the dragon's head off. It moves into Ephraim, the bull, and it highlights the 7 stars in the bull. Pleiades highlights the stars, but watch what happens. It goes into Perseus the breaker. It comes up here to Perseus the breaker. And what does it do when it goes into Perseus? Remember what Micah said? The breaker goes forth. This is the time of getting the sheep into the sheepfold. And guess what happens? It goes right through the head of the enemy. Let me get it on the date here. Oh, look where Apophis is when this is happening. Apophis is in the sheepfold. Apophis is in the pen, while breaker is all about gathering the sheep to bring them to the pen. And guess what the comet does? It goes right through the head of the enemy in his left arm, severing the head of the enemy, just as it did the dragon. Amazing. I mean, if I was to just create the most amazing thing I could create, I couldn't even do this good of a job. This is just beyond coincidence, the things that I'm presenting. It's just amazing. So now, we need to focus on Apophis here. And so we'll watch Apophis as it moves back through the constellations. And also you need to watch the bull right now for a minute. Watch the horns of the bull. Okay, do you see what's coming? I don't know if you can see this, but there's the planet Venus and the planet Mercury, the sun, are now, these two planets together are doing a retrograde together. This is a real rare deal. They're retrograding together, one right above the other, coming right across the sun, as Apophis is leaving the sheepfold, as Perseus, the Maholtz, is leaving. It's actually maybe at this moment, it's already exited Perseus. And so here we have this amazing moment, May the 31st, 2028. Write the date down. May the 31st, 2028. And note your Hebrew calendars whenever you start looking up your Hebrew dates. So now we're going to follow Apophis. You watch both, the two planets. So now you're going to see Apophis is still moving, but watch the two planets as they're retrograding together. They pass the sun, and all of a sudden they form a triangle with Mars. Mars and the Venus and Mercury are now in this face of the bull as Apophis is approaching the king star. Apophis is coming up on the king star Regulus. Again, sun is between the horns. These are just really, this could happen anywhere. But Abba, who has designed it, is happening at these locations, telling a story to us ahead of time. So Apophis now crosses Regulus right here, the king star. Okay? Look at the triangle that these are making at the same time. That's crazy. I mean, look at these. I mean, can you see those three? Can you guys see that? Look at that. Look at the triangle that they're making. Isn't that awesome? So that's happening there. Apophis is crossing the king's star. And let's keep moving. Now we're going to get real interesting. I've got just a few minutes left. Apophis has crossed Regulus. Apophis is now going to cross Jupiter. And something's going to happen when it gets to the head of the Virgin. It's been moving right to left all this time, hasn't it? Not anymore. Apophis now comes to this spot in the head of the Virgin. Note the date, August 11th, 2028. And it comes to a halt. And guess what it's going to do? It's going to do a retrograde and start going the other direction. Now I need to highlight this object and center it because we've got to follow it. We've got to follow where it's going to go. This brings us to the end of the whole amazing climatic story that's happening about not only do we have Perseus and where Apophis is when Perseus is doing its thing and all the cutting off, all this stuff pointing to the Ursa Major, Minor, and the Cancer. Here's what's interesting. So now it goes the other direction, opposite the way the other planets are moving, and it moves back towards the lion. What's the lion's picture? It is roused for the rending of the enemy. And who's the enemy? Hydra down here below. Okay? And so what does Apophis show us? Oh, it's going to come over here and it's going to get right to the king star. Right with Venus. Venus, Apophis, and the king star are doing they're all over together this spot, which again, he's in control. It's happening at this moment, and it's October the 1st, the night that we'll be assembling for the first night of Sukkot. 2028. The night that we're assembling for the beginning of Sukkot, this is what we're seeing. And Apophis is stopping its retrograde here at the King's Star, and it's going to make a direct path back the other direction again. And let's see where it goes. Huh? This is one of the four corners of the heavens, yes. Okay, so watch. Apophis now stops here at Regulus. Remember, here's Regulus right here between them. Let's see if I can get it on Regulus here. It wants to stay on Apophis. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. So we're going to follow Apophis. It's now stopping its move from left to right, and now it's going to go right to left again. But we got to watch where it goes. Here it's going to take off back this direction, and it's going to stop, not in the head of the Virgin, but it's going to stop in the tail of the serpent. Isn't there a scripture out there that says the serpent's tail is going to do what with the stars? Oh, now remember, we're supposed to be seeing this with the naked eye from 2026 on. Daylight and night. And so when it goes into this tail of the serpent, it's going to have all kinds of debris coming off of it, looking like stars and probably, what do they call it? Shooting stars across the whole heavens. So it goes into the tail of the serpent, cutting the serpent's tail off. Look at this, right through the tail, cutting the serpent's tail off. And then it goes right into what? Remember the bird? The bird is what? What was the bird about? I got to show you. What's the bird about? Corvus, the bird of prey devouring the enemy. It's going to now go into the cup, the crater, which is the divine wrath poured out upon the serpent. And then it's going to go into Hydra, the old serpent destroyed, as we'll see next. It's into the bird. Eating is right here in the tail. He's ready to eat the serpent up. Ooh, it goes right into the cup. Wrath being poured out. What's the date? April 7th, 2029. That's feast date time, isn't it? That's the fall feast. By the way, did you know that the big bear, There's a thing in it called what? The Big Dipper. Polly has always pointed out to everybody at Sukkot, or I'm saying, but you show them when we look at the heavens at Sukkot, that during Passover, that cup is being poured out on Passover. So when Yeshua died, the pouring out of redemption, the pouring out of mercy and grace to the big fold was taking place on Passover. What an amazing picture, okay? So here, Apophis is in the cup of now pouring out on him. And let's look. Right here, it goes into the head of the serpent, but cutting off the head. But not only the head of the serpent, but you see Argo down here. Here's Argo right here. This mast doesn't stop here. The mast in ancient pictures goes all the way up here to the tip of this sextans. What's the sextans used for? How they navigated it back in the old day in the ships, right? They used it for navigation. But the tip of the mast of the ship Argo comes right to here. So Apophis goes right through the mast of Argo, the ship. At the same time, it's cutting off the head of the serpent. And guess what? What was the date I told you that Apophis was supposed to make the closest flyby? April the what? 13th, 2029. Look at the date up at the top. We're on April 11th, April 12th, April 13th. It's in the crab. On April 13th, the day that this thing either hits the earth or comes so close that it's mind-blowing, it's in the crab. Now I want to tell you what I saw. If it's coming to us, we're going to see it, and it's coming to us from our vantage point, it looks to us like it's coming from the crab. Who is this that comes from Bozrah, the sheepfold, with his garments stained red and coming in glowing colors? That may be exactly what this looks like as it's coming from Bozrah, the sheepfold. That's startling. That's amazing. Because this couldn't have happened any other place but here to make everything come together as an amazing picture, as an amazing story. And so I'm going to close because I know we're at the time to close. We're just a little bit beyond. So if you have questions online, email me, mark@livingmessiah.com. And those of you here, we can have a moment of question and answering as we close. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. This has been one of the most amazing things I've seen in a long time, and hopefully you were blessed by it. Thanks for joining. Thank you for being here. Shabbat Shalom.